And I think that the main stumbling block is fear. You know, it's fear. It's absolutely fear. And we masquerade fear up in different ways. And I think that the common theme at the minute is imposter syndrome. So who's going to be brave enough to put their hand up? Are you going to be an imposter syndrome and say no? But who's felt that at different times in terms of, I don't belong in this room, I'm not good enough for this relationship, I can't go for that promotion? Absolutely. It is so, so common. Now, stupidly, I think the thing that goes well for me is I'm a really, really slow learner. So I have to make loads and loads and loads of mistakes until I finally catch on. But when I got kind of late teens, early 20s, I stupidly thought I could beat fear. I remember thinking if I do dangerous things, I'll not feel fear anymore. And, you know, jumping off cliffs into the sea and hiking up dangerous mountains. And I thought, I'll beat it. Until you start to develop a bit of emotional intelligence and you realize that you'll never beat fear. Fear is an emotion, we'll always experience it. But I remember when I get into speaking, I had a mentor at the time and I said to him, when I stand on stage, if I'm doing a talk, I get so nervous. I actually said to him, I feel as if I'm going to shit myself. And my hands are sweaty and my mouth's dry and I can't concentrate. And he smiled at me and he said, good. And I remember thinking, I'm paying this guy. Like, he's meant to be a bit of a mentor. And I said it again. I was like, no, I don't think you understand. Like, I feel as if I'm going to boke. I'm proper nervous here. I can't sit still. My brain's not working. And he just said, good again. And I thought, right, okay, where are you going with this? And he said, sometimes that fear is an indicator of growth. Sometimes that uncomfortable feeling is an indicator of growth. Now, in my head, I'm thinking, it makes sense, it sounds great, but I still feel as if I'm going to boke. But he told me a story, and I want to kind of tell you that story as well. The story is about one of my sporting idols. I love boxing, and I loved watching Mike Tyson as a kid. He was ferocious. I'd never seen anything like it before, just his movement, his knockout power. And Mike Tyson had an unconventional mentor as well called Cus D'Amato, a really interesting man, probably the first unofficial sports psychologist in boxing. Fascinating man who kind of understood how the mind works. But was really interesting, Mike Tyson, 18, I think he was the youngest heavyweight of all time. He was nicknamed as the baddest man on the planet. He was ferocious, violent, actually. But he used to be terrified of going out of his dressing room and into the ring. Terrified. Even in his autobiography, if you read it, it used to say that he used to be in tears. And Cush knew he had a problem. He thought, this kid has all the talent in the world. He knows what he wants. He's got it. But he's consumed and paralyzed by fear. What are we going to do? And so he started speaking to Mike, and he said, I need this kid to understand that fear is normal. But perhaps this feeling, that bear in mind he's going out to fight big, scary men, he's 18, he's 19, it's absolutely normal to have anxiety. It's absolutely normal to be nervous. It's absolutely normal to have a bit of fear. But he said to Mike, he says, what we need to do, Mike, we need to control this fear. Because if you can control it, Mike, it will be a superpower. And he explained to Mike Tyson, he said, fear is like a fire. And if you can control it, it'll cook your food, it'll heat your home. But Mike, if it controls you, it will burn your house down. So we'll have to control it. And if you can control it, it's going to be a superpower. And he went on to tell Mike about how this works in other animals. And he told him the story of the deer. And he said that the deer, it always seeks shelter in the wood, in the forest. Because when it's in the wood, in the forest, the predators, the lions and the tigers, it can't see it. But ultimately, it has to leave that safety to get out into the meadows and the plains to eat grass, to live, to survive, to feed its young. And so Cus said to him, you know, when the deer leaves the plains, it's nervous, it feels fear just like you, but it has to go into the arena of life. And you have to step into the arena of life too, Mike. But he explained as the deer started kind of sheepishly going out into the plains, it intuitively picked up a lion down in the back. And what happened was that big dump of adrenaline, that horrible feeling that you get in your stomach when you feel as if you're going to go to the toilet or book. Big dump of adrenaline, big dump of cortisol. But what also happens is that adrenaline, that cortisol goes to the deer's legs. It goes to our legs too, for fight or flight. So much blood goes away from the core and into the legs so we can run faster. And he explained to Mike that when that happens to the deer, if it hadn't happened, the lion would kill it, it would attack it. But when it's full of fear, the superpower, it allows the deer to escape the lion and get to the other side of the forest. And Mike understood this. In actual fact, if you look at all his first fights, I mean, several, maybe more, maybe a dozen of his first fights, he knocked the opponent out in the first, second, or third round because he had it in his head, this isn't something that's going to control me. This is a superpower. Nervousness going into a room for the first time is absolutely normal. Going for a job promotion is absolutely normal. Going into uncharted territory, any form of growth, it is absolutely normal to get overwhelmed, to feel fear, to get anxious. And ultimately, it's the trade-off. And for me, sometimes it's the universe's way of saying, do you want it? Do you want this growth? Do you want this promotion? Do you want this new record? How bad are you willing to go through that discomfort? And really, it's just a somatic response in the body. Unfortunately, so many people feel it, and their way of dealing with it is to go back into the forest and just stay stuck. Never go for the promotion, never ask for the date, never start the business, grow the business. I think so many times we're consumed by fear, but we need to see it as an indicator of growth. It most definitely is an indicator of growth, that somatic response. Now, unfortunately for us humans, deers are much smarter. And that's not saying a lot, but deers do a wonderful thing. In actual fact, all mammals, apart from us, do a really interesting thing. So if you go onto the Discovery Channel and you see this happening, you see the deer escape the lion or the zebra or the buffalo escape the lion, what is the one thing they do? When they get away, they go and shake, don't they? They shake like mad, and it's a somatic response because what's in their body is full of adrenaline, full of cortisol, all that chemical cocktail that just causes anxiety and nervousness and overwhelm. They shake it off. They have a somatic response of just shaking it off, but we don't. We hold on to it. This is why, again, something that I think there needs to be a conversation about is we live in the most comfortable era ever. I mean, I love Irish history. The famine, me and Jack always talk about the famine and look at different places, and that was less than 200 years ago. Like 1 million people on this very, very small, insignificant island in the world died here. Over 1 million had to leave because of starvation. And less than 200 years later, we're wearing designer clothes and designer cars and beautiful hotels, and it's amazing and we deserve it. But we're so comfortable. But what's really interesting is the levels of stress, depression, anxiety are at an all-time high, and all the major statistics and data support that. Maybe we need to take a leaf out of the Deer's book. Maybe we need to be aware of that somatic response when we're holding on to all that stress, holding on to all that pressure. How do we get rid of it? How do we shake it off? And I'm not going to get everyone up to dance, but it could be something as simple. This morning I did go for a walk just because I knew, okay, I feel a wee bit tense, I'll go for a walk. Everyone knows I'm into sea swimming. It helps me shake it off a wee bit. But I think sometimes we need to take a leaf out of nature's book and watch what nature does, because I think we have perversely, somewhere along the line, decided that we're not part of nature. There's nature in all its magnificence, all its animals, how everything's perfect, and the ecosystems and the mountains and the trees and the seas and everything. And then there's us, separate. But for me, personal development is essentially all the answers are in nature. The seasons, the fact that you can start again every day, it's always there. We maybe need to start looking at that.